Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed. At 1,000 subscribers, I'll be posting a special video. My boyfriend slammed his phone on the table and the screen hit my face. Numbers glared up, stacked in one clean line under my name. I am Erica and 27, and my stomach dropped hard. He jabbed the screen with his thumb like he wanted to break it. The balance showed more than he makes in 3 months, and we both knew it. He did not yell, which honestly scared me more than shouting would. He just watched me with a tight jaw, waiting for whatever story I invented. I forced a laugh because silence felt more dangerous than any lie. "What is this supposed to be?" He nudged the phone closer toward my hand. I stared at the transfer line and pretended I needed more time to read. In my head, the answer was simple, I just could not say it yet. "Did you win the lottery or something I missed?" His eyebrows lifted like he already knew. If I lied wrong right then, it felt like everything would snap. "It is just a contract job online, and I already told you." That part was not a full lie, just the most convenient slice of truth. I watch myself in that moment now and want to shake my own shoulders. Back then, I treated honesty like a dimmer switch instead of a real choice. He leaned back on the chair with crossed arms like he was done pretending to be calm. "You think I am stupid tonight?" His voice stayed low, but every word hit hard. The alert popped on my phone from our bank, and I recognized everything. That was when I realized he had been watching my money longer than I knew. My stomach knotted as I realized the problem was not the amount. He had gone through our shared email and followed my notifications into the account. I wanted to call it invasive and controlling, but my throat locked up. You do not get to yell about privacy when you build your life on secrets. It is just freelance work online, nothing dramatic. My fingers tapped against the table in short, useless bursts. "You know, I have been trying to bring in more income for us." I threw the word "us" out there like a shield and watched it bounce. "Then why will you not explain what you actually do?" He pushed his chair back slowly like he was lining up a shot. "Who sends you that kind of money if they barely know you?" The way he said "barely" landed heavier than the number sitting between us. I could have pulled up invoices and contracts and timelines right then. Instead, I kept my laptop closed and my mouth almost closed with it. Every instinct said protect the work first and figure out the relationship later. Looking back, that was the moment I chose a password over a person. It is completely legal work, I promise. Nothing dangerous and nothing that puts you at risk or touches you. I thought if I kept the details vague, he would feel safer somehow. Instead, his eyes sharpened like every missing word was proof of something worse. "So there are details then that you will not share." He gave one short laugh that carried zero humor. "Do you hear yourself right now? Because I do, and it sounds insane." The worst part is he did not sound wrong to me in that second. I felt my cheeks burn, and I hated that he could see it. My brain sprinted through every possible script, and none of them looked safe. Tell him everything and watch his face change, or keep dodging and watch it harden. Either way, I was about to lose something, and I could feel it slipping. He picked up the phone again and locked the screen with his thumb. "If you will not tell me tonight, I will find out myself." He stood and walked toward the living room where my laptop waited on the couch. I stayed frozen in the chair and realized the secret was not locked up anymore. He reached for the laptop before I could stand. The lid was half open from earlier, like I had left a door ajar. I scraped the chair back and moved faster than I probably should have. He glanced over his shoulder when my hand landed on the case. "Move." He did not raise his voice, which somehow made it sharper. "I am not going to break it, I just want to see." My fingers stayed on the edge because letting go felt worse than grabbing. "It is locked." I snapped it shut and hugged it against my chest. You can stare at the login screen all night and learn nothing. I heard the defensive edge and hated how guilty it sounded. "So there is something to hide then." He folded his arms and settled near the couch like this was a show. Normal jobs do not need spy-level rules and mystery. I wanted to tell him that normal jobs also did not pay our rent so fast. Looking back, that was the first time I treated the laptop like a body. I carried it to the bedroom as if someone might grab it away. He watched every step and did not follow, which only twisted things tighter. I set it on the dresser and changed the main password with shaking hands. I know that sounds paranoid, but paranoia was baked into the work. Not because it was illegal, but because exposure would blow everything up. Clients expected privacy. I expected privacy. Everyone stayed safer when nothing leaked. Try explaining that to someone who thinks secrets are always about cheating. Later that night, I slid into my little office and turned the lock. The click was soft and final, like closing a diary. I put on headphones and opened the encrypted chat app out of habit. A message popped up from a regular asking if I was available. On the other side of the door, the apartment felt too quiet. I typed quick answers, half focused on the screen and half on footsteps. My mic test ran. I watched the little bar jump with my breathing. Every normal step of my routine suddenly felt like evidence in a trial. "Why is this door locked?" His voice came through the wood and jolted me upright. He tried the handle once, then again, like maybe it had jammed. I hit mute on my mic so fast I almost knocked my headset off. "I am in the middle of something. I will come out after this." I kept my tone even and businesslike, like I was talking to a client. He laughed short and ugly right near the keyhole. "Yeah, I got that part. You are always in the middle of something now." I stared at the chat window while the client typed another line. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, torn between two different worlds. I could cancel and calm my relationship or finish and keep my reliability. I told the client I needed 5 minutes and watched the cursor blink like judgment. When I opened the door, he leaned against the wall with his arms raised. "The lock again." He tapped the metal with one knuckle like it insulted him personally. "When did our home turn into a collection of restricted areas? It is for privacy, not against you." I hated how weak that explanation felt out loud. I talk to people about personal topics. They need discretion. I need boundaries. The moment the word personal left my mouth, his eyebrows shot up. "Personal for them or for you?" He pushed off the wall and stepped closer to the doorway. "You expect me to be fine with you shutting me out night after night?" He gestured at the room behind me like it was some forbidden zone. I could feel my work timer still running on the desk behind me. Money ticked away every minute I stayed in the hallway. "I am trying to keep everything separate so it does not bleed everywhere." That sounded smarter in my head than it did floating between us. "What exactly is bleeding here?" His eyes flicked from my face to the headset around my neck. "You whisper to strangers with the door locked and our joint account fills up." He let that hang there, heavy and accusing, daring me to clean it up. My throat went dry because he had the outline right, just not the content. "Look, there are rules I have to follow or I lose clients. Encrypted platforms, fake names, specific phrases, all the unromantic stuff that keeps it safe." I almost listed them, then stopped myself because each one would raise a fresh question. "So your rules matter more than my trust now?" He rubbed his forehead like it physically hurt to say that. "Do you hear how that sounds from my side of the door?" I did hear it, and it lodged in my chest and stayed. Instead of answering, I stepped back into the office and reached for the lock. I did not turn it, not that time, but the urge pulsed strong. "I just need to finish a session and then we can talk properly." He laughed again and walked away before I could finish the offer. I went back to my desk with my pulse racing in my ears. The client had left another message asking if everything was okay. I typed some bland excuse about technical issues and pushed through the work. The whole time I pictured the hallway, empty and waiting for a different version of me. After that night, the lock became an argument even when it stayed open. He would glance at the door whenever I walked toward it with my laptop. My phone buzzed with coded notifications, and he would go strangely quiet. It felt like living with a smoke alarm that never stopped blinking red. I told myself the routines were normal for anyone with sensitive online work. Headphones so neighbors could not overhear, usernames that changed monthly, strict schedules. Every measure made sense on paper, and I clung to that logic. Still, every beep and click sounded louder once he decided they looked dirty. He started timing how long I stayed inside the room without even hiding it. I would step out to refill my water and catch him checking the clock. Sometimes he would ask casual questions that were anything but casual. Busy tonight. New client. Long session. Each one carried a sharp edge underneath the small talk. I could have ended everything by opening my laptop on the kitchen table. Turn off the lock, work in the open, let him watch the entire thing. But that would break the promise I had made to the people paying me. So I kept the lid closed around him and told myself he would eventually understand. What actually happened is he started looking for his own ways inside. I saw it in the way he hovered near my desk when I forgot to log out. In the way he picked up my phone and pretended to check the time. Every gesture felt like a test, waiting for one wrong move from me. I walked out to refill my glass and stopped dead. He sat on the couch with my laptop open on his knees. His shoulders hunched in, fingers busy, eyes locked on the screen. For a second I honestly thought I was dreaming, then my pulse spiked hard. "What are you doing?" My voice came out thinner than I wanted, almost shaky. He did not flinch, just tilted the screen a little toward himself. "You left this logged in, I figured I would finally meet your boss." I crossed the room fast and grabbed the side of the laptop. He tightened his grip, and we had this tiny tug of war over the hinge. "Let go, you are going to break it." "You already broke it, just not the plastic." The login page was not the usual one, and my stomach lurched. He had my secondary email account pulled up, the one with the alias. A list of unread messages filled the center, each with coy subject lines. One near the top read, "Next script idea, heavy praise for last night." I slammed the lid halfway and he shoved it back open. "Do not even start right now." He pointed at the lines on the screen with a sharp, quick gesture. "You lied straight to my face about all of this." "I never lied, I said I had online contracts." The defense sounded flimsy even to my own ears. He scrolled the cursor down and clicked on a random email. A paragraph popped up full of fantasy terms and a request for audio. My mouth went dry while he skimmed the message in silence. "Tell me I am misreading this." His thumb hovered over a payment notification in the corner. "You perform on a mic for strangers and they wire you bonuses. It is not what you think." The words tumbled out on instinct before I fully formed them. I reached for the trackpad, he shifted his knee and blocked my hand. "The work is scripted, controlled, there is nothing physical happening with anyone. So you are entertaining people for money and keeping that from me." He leaned back a little, eyes never leaving the screen. "This is not some boring survey job like you made it sound." His mouth twisted on the word boring like he tasted something sour. I focused on the laptop just to avoid his expression. The inbox showed custom orders, tip confirmations, recurring clients with pet names. All the stuff that felt normal in my office looked different under his stare. I wanted to snatch the whole thing away and toss it in a drawer. "Are you hearing yourself? This is basically sex work." He pushed the laptop onto the coffee table with a sharp shove. "Maybe you are not touching anyone, but come on, look at these messages." He tapped one subject line and my face burned like he had slapped me. "I write stories and record them, that is literally it." I could feel my nails digging into my palms as I talked. "There is a screen between us, a contract, very clear boundaries with everyone." Each rule I listed made his expression harder instead of calmer. "Do you send them pictures too?" His gaze flicked from the laptop to my face. "Videos, private shows, what else am I missing here?" Every new guess hit like another accusation I could not fully outrun. "No pictures, no streaming, nothing like that at all." I answered too fast, which made the whole thing sound rehearsed. He caught that and gave a short, dry laugh that cut through the air. "You hesitated before saying no, and you think I did not notice." He dragged the laptop closer again and opened the Payments tab. A column of recent transfers glowed in neat rows, tidy and damning. He scrolled through the amounts, jaw working like he chewed on each number. "You make more in a week from this than I do in a month." A part of me wanted to point out that this helped both of us. That bills got paid faster, that we had stopped overdrafting, all of that. Instead, I watched his shoulders slump for a second before he straightened again. It suddenly looked less like curiosity and more like betrayal mixed with envy. "So that is why you lock yourself away every night." He gestured toward the office door down the hall. You close that door and whisper to men who tip you extra for it. The office that once felt like a workspace now felt like a crime scene. They are not in my life, they are not in my head, they are buyers. I spat the last word out, trying to make it sound cold and transactional. If I stop following the confidentiality rules, I lose everything overnight. I did not add that losing everything meant losing the one thing I controlled. He rubbed his temples, breathing slow like he was counting to 10. Why could you not just tell me this months ago? His voice dropped low and almost tired, which somehow hurt worse than anger. Do you really, th? I would rather be lied to than uncomfortable. Honestly, yes, I had counted on exactly that, and it stung to admit it. Every time I wanted to explain, it felt like too much at once. I pictured his face hearing the words adult content creator and chickened out. So instead, I built a fortress of half explanations and hoped he stayed outside. He stood up without warning, and the room felt smaller at once. I am going for a drive. He dug his keys out of his pocket, movement sharp and clipped. Shut that thing down before I come back, or do not expect me to stay. He walked out and the door closed harder than necessary behind him. The laptop sat open on the table, my inbox still glowing like a warning. I hovered over the power button, hands shaking, torn between survival and honesty. Even now, writing this, I can still feel that split right down the middle. The lock clicked and his keys landed on the counter hard. I was still standing over the laptop like an idiot statue. The screen had gone dark, but everything between us was still glowing. He looked from me to the table, and I felt my chest clamp. You shut it off. He tossed his jacket onto a chair without breaking eye contact. Good, now we are going to talk like adults. Every part of me wanted to bolt back into my office instead. He pulled out a chair and dropped into it like it belonged to him. Zit. Just that, nothing else, and my legs moved before my brain caught up. I sat across from him and folded my hands so he could not see them shake. I am done guessing what you do behind that door. His fingers tapped once against the tabletop, sharp and rhythmic. You are going to walk me through all of it tonight. The word all landed like a weight I could not lift. I already explained the basics earlier. I aimed for calm and landed somewhere near defensive. It is creative work online, I have systems, I have boundaries. He raised his eyebrows like I had just recited the weather report. You gave me marketing slogans, not the truth. He leaned forward, elbows braced, focus locked on my face. Here is how this goes from now on. My stomach twisted because I knew I was not going to like the terms. You tell me everything about this gig, no fog, no spin. One finger went up like he counted off charges. I get full access to that inbox and whatever apps you use. Another finger joined the first and my pulse hit my throat. I am not handing you client conversations. The words came out faster than I planned, almost sharp. They paid for privacy, I promised them that, it is not optional. His jaw tensed and I knew I had just confirmed his worst theory. So you protect strangers over the person you share a bed with. He laughed once, loud and humorless, then shook his head. You really want that sentence written down somewhere and still feel proud? I dropped my gaze because in that exact second I did not. That is not what I meant and you know it. My voice crackled and I hated giving him proof I was rattled. I protect the structure that keeps the money coming, that keeps us afloat. I left out the part where the structure had started feeling like my spine. He pushed back his chair an inch, like distance would help him think. If your income depends on me being blind, then something is wrong. His palms opened, then closed again, like he needed something to hold. Either you trust me enough to see it, or you trust them more. You know that feeling when you realize there is no good sentence left. Every path in the conversation leads to a different kind of fallout. I could show him everything and watch his respect crash in real time. Or I could keep the curtain up and confirm I had chosen secrecy. I can answer questions without dragging you through explicit content. I tried again, softer, like maybe tone would fix substance. You do not need every recording, every script to understand the basics. He stared like I had offered him a brochure instead of a real answer. This is not a product demo, this is my life. His hand hit his chest once, quick, like he needed the reminder. I wake up wondering who you are performing for while I am asleep. The word performing hung between us, heavier than all the actual files. Silence sat there for a beat, just our breathing and the fridge hum. I could feel him waiting for me to fill the gap with something brave. Instead, I grabbed the easiest excuse within reach because fear is lazy. I did not want you to see me differently just because of my job. There it is. He pointed at me like he had finally caught the thing he chased. You know this would change how I look at you, and you did it anyway. That stung because he was not wrong, not completely, and I hated that. I started it before you and I got this serious. The admission slipped out and I wished I could swallow it back. Then it kept growing and stopping would wreck our whole budget. He flinched at our whole budget like I had just signed him to a contract. So you tied both of us to something I never agreed on. He pushed his chair all the way back and stood abruptly. I am supposed to smile and enjoy the lifestyle while you hide the cost. The word cost did not mean money anymore, and we both knew it. He paced once around the table, quick steps, hands clenched, shoulders tight. When he finally stopped, he braced his palms on the edge and leaned in. I am laying this out once and I am not repeating myself. That line felt final in a way nothing else that night had felt. You can keep doing this job, but then we are done. He held up one hand like he was swearing something in court. Or you can stop, delete the accounts, walk away from it completely. His voice steadied on that last part like he had practiced it in the car. Air caught in my throat because both options tasted like losing. If I quit, I lost my independence overnight and handed him the steering wheel. If I kept going, I lost the relationship that had been my default home. It did not feel like a choice, it felt like watching a bridge burn from each side. You are asking me to give up the one thing that is actually mine. The words came out small, but they were honest for once. This work is under my name, my accounts, my structure, not yours. He went still, and that stillness scared me more than his pacing. We were supposed to be a team. His voice dropped rough, tired in a way I had never heard. Teams do not keep private worlds that run on other people wanting them. He swallowed hard, then met my eyes, and I felt something tilt. I do not know how to stand next to you in public anymore. He rubbed his thumb along the edge of the table, slow and distracted. Knowing you go home and turn on a mic for people who pay to be aroused. There it was, the word we had danced around, landing between us like a verdict. I wanted to argue that fantasy and reality were separate categories. That I could talk a stranger through their kink and still love my partner fully. But the look on his face told me we did not share a dictionary for intimacy. So every explanation in my head turned to dust before it reached my mouth. He checked his watch like there was a deadline stamped on the night. I am not demanding an answer right this second, but you have very little time. He nodded once toward the office door at the end of the hall. Whatever you choose in there is what you choose for us. He walked past me toward the bedroom, grabbing a blanket from the closet. It took me a second to realize he was not heading for our bed anymore. He dropped the blanket on the couch and started straightening the cushions for himself. That quiet relocation said more than any speech about space or trust could. I stayed at the table, fingers pressed against the edge until they hurt. The office door waited behind me like a question I had built myself. Inside were my clients, my scripts, my schedule, every proof of my double life. I stood up slowly, knowing that wherever I walked next would rewrite everything. I walked to the couch and nudged his foot with mine. Come to the workspace. My voice sounded steadier than I felt, which surprised both of us. If you still want the whole picture, you get it now. He pushed the blanket aside and sat up slow, like he expected a trap. You are actually letting me in there. Suspicion fought with curiosity on his face, and neither side backed off. I turned and started down the hall before I could chicken out. Inside the room, I did not touch the lock, which felt strange already. I woke the computer, and the main dashboard appeared on the monitor. Numbers, messages, project titles, everything I usually hid even from myself. For the first time, I invited him to stand close enough to read. This is the platform. I gestured at the layout, my hand hovering just above the screen. People post what they want written, sometimes they add audio requests. Even to my own ears, it sounded like a cleaned-up pitch. He stepped behind my chair, arms folded tight across his chest. Show me an actual job, not the landing page. His breath hit my shoulder, and I had to fight the urge to pull away. I clicked a recent order because stalling would only make things worse. A project opened with a wall of text and a detailed scenario. Characters, positions, specific lines they wanted me to deliver in their fantasy. I scrolled a little, then stopped because my cheeks burned already. He leaned closer and read in silence long enough to make me dizzy. So you wrote all of this? He tapped one line where the client had praised the last piece. You craft their fantasy from scratch and then act it out later. His tone made the word craft sound like something dirty on the floor. I write to spec, they get what they pay for. My fingers clenched around the mouse because I needed something solid. Then I record a voice TR. Act reading the script, they download it. Plain facts, no decoration, but I could feel how charged each one was. Play 1. He straightened and pointed at the audio section like this was evidence. If it is such a normal gig, let me hear what you do. My stomach lurched because that request felt more intimate than anything physical. I hovered over an older file where I knew the limits and rhythm. Short clip only. I clicked play and my own recorded voice filled the tiny space. Soft, low, deliberate, nothing like how I ordered coffee or argued about dishes. He went still behind me, like even breathing might break something. Hearing myself like that while sitting fully dressed in my chair felt unreal. Past me coaxed a stranger toward their fantasy while present me watched my partner flinch. When I paused the track, the silence that followed felt heavier than the audio. That is not storytelling, that is erotic content on demand. He took 2 steps back as if the file might bite him. You are not just writing, you are performing for whoever swipes their card. He looked at the screen like it had teeth and I had fed it. I never said it was innocent. My throat tightened but I forced every word out anyway. I create explicit scripts and record them, no visual feed, no cams. That was the first time I named it without hiding behind vague labels. He stared at the earnings section, jaw clenched, eyes moving over the totals. You cleared almost 5 figures this month from moaning into a microphone. The way he phrased it punched through any pride I had about the number. I swallowed hard because shame and defensiveness were wrestling for space. It is not just sounds, there is structure, pacing, character work. I heard how ridiculous that argument sounded outside my own brain. People come back because I remember their preferences, their limits, their triggers. I did not add that building that map of strangers gave me a strange control. Do they know you have a boyfriend while you do this? His eyes finally left the totals and locked onto my face again. Or do they get to imagine you alone every single time? That question landed like an accusation I did not have a neat answer for. They know I have a life off the platform, that is all they get. I closed the audio window, partly for him, partly for me. No personal photos, no real name, no location details, nothing traceable. He snorted, unimpressed, like safety features did not touch the core problem. So you keep your body out of it, but everything else is there. He gestured at my throat, my mouth, my hands on the keyboard. They fall asleep listening to you say their favorite words into their ears. The way he said there made me feel like a subscription service in human form. Do you think I am not aware of that? My voice spiked sharper than I planned, anger finally bleeding through. I built rules around this so it stays work, not some secret emotional affair. The moment that last phrase came out, I knew I had stepped on a landmine. Work does not usually involve whispering fantasies to a line of strangers. He laughed once, flat and joyless, then shook his head. This is sex work, you pay your bills by arousing people for money. For him that label settled everything, for me it twisted everything. I am not ashamed of the labor, I am ashamed I hid it. That truth slipped out before I could sand it down. I like being good at it, I like not begging anyone for raises. His face tightened at that, like I had just said I did not need him. So this is about control for you. He paced the small room, 2 quick passes from wall to wall. You get power from strangers while I sit outside wondering who you are tonight. Hearing it framed that way made my stomach flip because he was not completely wrong. I spun the chair to face him fully, forcing myself not to look away. I get stability from this, I get options, I get savings. I counted them on my fingers like that would make them less emotional. The only thing I did wrong was keep you in the dark too long. You think the lie is the only damage here. He stopped near the door and leaned against the frame, blocking the exit. I cannot unhear your voice in that file, knowing others play it alone. He rubbed his hands over his face like he could scrub that audio out. He looked around the room at the headset at the schedule pinned above the desk. How many regulars do you have? I hesitated, then gave him the real number because lying now felt pointless. He blew out a breath, then laughed again without humor. So not one affair, hundreds of mini ones, all carefully scheduled. He shook his head slowly, eyes wide, almost stunned. You expect me not to feel like I am sharing you with a crowd. I did not have a quick comeback because in his framework that was exactly it. I never agree to that version of us, he said, voice low but clear. When we moved in, I thought we were building something with honesty. He flicked his hand toward the monitor, disgust sharp and sudden. Instead, you built a business where my existence has to stay off stage. I opened my mouth to argue, then shut it because he was right about that part. Clients knew nothing about him, on purpose, by design, by my choice. I had carved my life into two boxes and pretended they never bumped edges. Now both boxes were cracked open and everything looked messier in the light. He straightened and stepped out of the doorway, leaving the exit clear. You wanted me to understand, congratulations, I understand perfectly now. His voice went oddly calm, which scared me more than any shouting. I am dating someone who pays rent by turning intimacy into a subscription. I flinched because hearing it phrased like that made even me hate my gig. Still, I did not hit delete on any account, not that night. I sat there with my hand on the mouse, frozen between two lives again. And yeah, that was the moment I knew his view of me had shifted for good. His suitcase hit the closet door before I was even fully awake. That dull thud yanked me up faster than any alarm ever did. He was already pulling clothes off hangers and dropping them in uneven stacks. I knew right away this was not a bluff round anymore. That is it. He did not look over, just kept folding in tight, angry motions. I tried to sleep on it, it got worse in my head. That line told me I had already lost more ground than I realized. I sat on the edge of the bed and watched him sort his life. Shoes here, shirts there, the whole rhythm clipped and mechanical. Can we talk before you start loading the car? My voice sounded raw, like I had swallowed sand sometime during the night. We already talked. He zipped one side of the suitcase and shoved it upright. You made your position clear when you kept those accounts active. The way he said active made my skin crawl like I had left a weapon out. I did not touch anything after you went to the couch. I held onto that small fact like it mattered. I sat in the chair and stared at the delete button for an hour. He finally glanced at me, and there was nothing soft left in his eyes. And you still logged in again this morning. He jerked his chin toward the hallway, toward my office door. You were in there before I even finished my coffee. He had heard the chair move because of course he had. I had deadlines stacked from yesterday. My excuse sounded thin even to me, like tissue paper over a hole. If I ghost them, the platform flags my profile and it all crashes. I almost added our safety net crashes, but I swallowed that part back. He dragged the suitcase off the bed and set it by the doorway. Do you hear yourself? He ran a hand through his hair, fingers tight, like he might yank it out. You are more afraid of disappointing strangers than losing the person next to you. That one hit so clean I actually flinched. I wanted to argue he was not just some guy next to me. That he was the person I cooked with, fought with, planned with. But somehow my brain skipped all that and defended the job instead. I am terrified of being dependent again. The words came out before I had time to polish anything. I know that is not romantic, but I finally feel secure. His shoulders dropped half an inch, like that line deflated something. So I am the threat now. He laughed once short, almost disbelieving, then shook his head. Not the dudes wiring money to hear you breathe into a mic. He grabbed a pair of jeans from the drawer and stuffed them into the bag. They are customers, they are not taking anything from me. I stood up because sitting made me feel smaller than I already did. You are asking me to give up income, control, everything I built. I heard myself and knew he was right about one thing: this was about power. He leaned on the dresser and looked at me fully for the first time. I asked for honesty, respect, and a say in what our life looks like. His voice stayed low, but every word landed like a small smack. What I got was a private career that depends on me not existing. I do not think he understood how much that last part stung. Because he was right, and that made it worse. There was no boyfriend category on any of those sites by design. I had edited him out of my work life before he even knew it existed. People will call you controlling if I post this online. The sentence slipped out, and I hated how manipulative it sounded. He blinked, caught off guard, then gave a humorless little smile. People will call you brave or empowered or whatever the buzzword is now. He sat on the suitcase to close it, pressing down with both hands. Go ahead and ask strangers who is wrong here. The zipper scraped around the edge like it was struggling too. At least they will know the full story, which is more than I got for months. That part I see. And not defend, not even now, sitting here typing this. I was busy managing everyone else's fantasies and forgot about a basic reality. You cannot hide a whole second life from someone and still claim partnership. I learned that later than I should have, but I did learn it. Do you still love me? The question came out small, like a kid tugging on a sleeve. I hated myself for asking it, but I needed the data point. He froze for a long beat, then grabbed his jacket from the chair. Of course I care. He did not rush it, did not toss it away, which almost hurt more. But loving you does not mean I sign up for this version of you. He slung the jacket over his shoulder and finally looked tired instead of just mad. You keep saying version like I switched bodies. I folded my arms across my chest to keep them from shaking. This was always me, you just discovered the settings I never showed you. It sounded clever in my head, out loud it just sounded cruel. I am not built for this level of compartmentalizing. He grabbed his wallet from the nightstand and shoved it into his pocket. When I am with someone, I want to be their first audience, not their leftover voice. That line cut deep because my job literally depended on being someone else's first listen. In the kitchen, he grabbed a grocery bag and started throwing basics inside. Toiletries, chargers, random essentials, all going into a temporary life pile. I followed him because letting him move around me without pushing back felt worse. Can we at least slow down before you walk out? For what? He tossed a phone charger on top of everything and twisted the bag handles together. So you can squeeze in one last recording while my Uber pulls up. My throat clenched because hearing him mash my work into that image made it uglier. That is not fair and you know it. I stepped between him and the door without fully planning it. I never cheated on you, never met any of them, never promised them anything personal. He held my gaze and I could tell he was measuring every syllable. You did not have to meet them. He reached past me for the handle and his fingers brushed my arm. They already had the most intimate part you own, the way you sound when you want someone. I swear my heart stopped for a second when he said that. Because yeah, he was not entirely wrong there either. I had spent more hours curating the perfect tone for strangers than talking through hard stuff with him. I had learned how to hit certain beats on command while barely touching the ones we needed. That realization still makes me wince now. I do not know how to rebuild trust on top of this. He opened the door a crack, then paused, like he was giving me one last window. If you had told me at the beginning, maybe we could have shaped rules together. He stared past me toward the hallway, toward that locked room like it was still between us. But you let me build this whole idea of who you were. His voice dropped to almost a whisper now. And then you admitted there has been a whole other you talking people through fantasies at night. He shook his head once, slow, like he was trying to clear water out of his ears. I wish I had handled it differently. That was the most honest sentence I had given him all week. I wish I told you before it got huge, before the money blinded me. My eyes burned, but I refused to cry until after he left. It is not just the money. He stepped into the hall, pulling his suitcase behind him with a dull scrape. It is the fact that my discomfort was negotiable and their satisfaction was not. That line lodged itself somewhere deep and still has not moved. At the elevator, he set the suitcase down and finally faced me again. For what it is worth, I do not think you are evil. He scratched the back of his neck, a nervous habit I knew too well. I just think we want totally different definitions of loyalty. The doors opened with a chime that made me jump. He rolled the bag inside, then caught the edge before it closed. You are going to tell this story online, I know you. He gave a half smile that did not reach his eyes at all. People will ask if you are even real if you made me up. He shrugged, almost helpless. Tell them I am the guy who could not handle sharing a voice he thought was his. Then he let the doors slide shut, and I watched my reflection swallow him. I went back to the apartment in this weird slow-motion fog. The office door was still open from earlier, the chair slightly turned. The monitor had gone dark again, but the platform was waiting underneath. I stood in the doorway and realized I had just lost a person, not a client. I did not log out. That is the part I know people will judge the hardest. I walked in, sat down, and woke the screen with one tap. New messages blinked at the top, proof that the machine did not care who had left. I closed every notification without answering an op. Into blank browser tab. My hands shook as I typed out the letters of this site. The blinking cursor in the post window felt almost as loud as my heartbeat. For the first time all night, I actually had control over the narrative. Title box first. Boyfriend is suspicious of my secretive work that brings in good money, now he's mad I won't quit. Yeah, I know, dramatic, long, whatever, but it captured the mess. Then I started pouring the whole thing out, piece by piece, for strangers. I wrote about the hidden income and the door and the inbox. I wrote about the audio he heard and the suitcase and the elevator. I left out a few identifying details because that part of me still lives on tight rules. But I put the emotional math out there, ugly and unfiltered. As I hit post, my notifications on the platform chimed again. Two worlds buzzing at once, one with tips and one with opinions. I stared at both and realized this was the choice I had made, for real this time. Not him or the job, but him or myself. I am not pretending. That sounds noble, by the way. Sometimes self-preservation is just selfishness with better branding. I chose the work, the independence, the version of me that scares him. Now I am sitting here asking faceless internet people if that makes me the villain.